Fay, welcome to Founders Podcast. Uh, tell us, uh, tell us about yourself, your Canadian roots in particular, and really what Mimic is all about.
Well, thank you for having me, Paul. So myself, I'm an entrepreneur. I really have the bug that I'm driven by curiosity and motivated by problem solving, which I think is the ingredient of an entrepreneur. Background technologist, quite passionate about technology and all that. Mimic is the third company that I started, and it's about solving the problems of the physical world using digital solution. And the name Mimic comes from mimicking the cloud to the edge, or creating digital solutions that mimics the physical interaction. And Mimic is really the enabler of what we call the hyper-connected world. That's what Mimic is all about. It's a company headquartered in Vancouver with offices in Canada, in US, and a very smart, dedicated, high achievers and humble group of people under the Mimic brand and the umbrella.
What brought you into the edge market?
It was toward 2009. I was as my second company, Mobidia, which actually later sold to App Annie, and I created this protocol optimization over wireless link. So the idea was, hey, the data traffic need to get optimized over wireless link for speed, throughput, and latency. And as I was testing this capability inside Vodafone Lab, I realized that, okay, we improved the traffic throughput, but then when the data reaches the operator data center and now leaves the data center to go to internet, there is a huge latency. And at the same time, I noticed that phones are now coming to market with more camera, higher resolution camera, and people start sending pictures, people start video calling each other. So in a sense, the traffic pattern is changing. So it's not only about the mobile connect to internet to consume content, but mobile creates traffic, right? So and this traffic, this information need to go to another mobile device. So I put the two together and I say, as more devices are coming to network and connectivity becomes part of every device, and compute and memory and CPU, we're not going to be able to send all data to cloud in order to create a communication between two applications. And sometimes both applications are on the same device. And sometimes it's about a sensor detecting me leaving home to get the Roomba connected vacuum cleaner need to now start working. So as these physical interactions happening, you can't just send everything to cloud. And that's how the whole thing is started. And it was under the code name Disternet, as in decentralized internet, which later we just changed the name thanks to my business partner, to Mimic.
Now, Fay, obviously a major win late last year with your signing of an agreement with IBM. How did that unfold, and how has it sort of helped Mimic as a startup? I mean, it certainly must have been viewed as a major victory.
It was a major victory for many reasons. First of all, I was fortunate enough to have a team around me that we developed this vision to its final stage, or you call it final stage, in a full stealth mode. And then when we came out in the market in 2019, beginning of 2019, and we started testing Mimic in a commercial setting, real commercial setting, to provide and showcase its benefit, like reduce your cost of cloud. It improves data security and data privacy. And then 2020, as COVID happened and we were planning to scale the business, what COVID actually did is accelerated the demand for digital transformation. And we saw a connection with both Amazon and IBM, because both of them are great brands, and they serving a lot of enterprise customers. And what Mimic is providing, for example, with IBM, is about extending their open horizon solution and AI to every device, because that's what Mimic is. Mimic is about making every device a cloud server. Mimic is about letting every device to process data and communicate with other devices from application point of view. So we reached out to IBM, and we're fortunate enough to work with the IBM executives that understood the vision, and I spent a few months trying the solution and its capability. And that led to announcement in December about our partnership. So it's about co-promotion to enterprises as toward their digital transformation and all that.
That's sort of the next question about, are you educating a market or arriving just at the right time with Mimic?
So I think it's a combination of the both. First of all, there are some elements of education for sure, because the market, I mean, there are multiple trends happening at the same time, right? One is that there is more compute, there is more power, and there's connectivity in every device, right? And COVID-19 accelerated the demand for digital transformation, which to some consultants such as Deloitte, they're saying that it accelerated by 6 years. Some others says by 10 years.
That's right. Yeah.
And as people went to digital, they realized the cost is humongous. And as everybody get impacted due to economy, cost became a very important thing. Data security breaches started popping up. Data privacy acts are coming down. You can't just manipulate user data. You can't just utilize the user data. And automation in everything became an important thing, right? So the trend technology, the usage, the pattern, and COVID-19 is kind of created everything at the same time. Mm-hmm. Now, we did not expect COVID-19, but we did expect the other trends happening, right? And we knew this is coming. It's again, pretty much every prediction that we made is happening. But we knew the trend is coming, and we prepared ourselves for these trends. And now, as the demand for digital and automation accelerated, we are the one that have an answer for many problems, have a solution for many problems. And it become a combination of education and getting things done. But we now in the situation that companies reaching out to us with a specific problem and say, how can you help me, right?
And with that, the next question about what you're most excited about in your business these days, would it be the fact that companies are asking you questions?
Well, what gets me excited about our business today definitely is the fact that I see the demand is coming, especially that Mimic has been in a stealth mode, was in a stealth mode, and last year was a roller coaster for us and everybody else. Mm-hmm. But it's exciting to see companies are knocking our door and coming and asking, and they come with a specific problem. The latest thing that makes me excited, I don't know if you have seen our news, is the Cathy Wood from the CEO and founder of ARK Invest. She's quite a visionary and economist. We announced this yesterday that she joined our board, and and she's an investor to Mimik, and that as we preparing to scale the business, this is a great addition to our team, and really the opportunity that we see in the market that excites me.
Well, I mean, that's what you look into the future. I mean, what are the top 3 things on your bucket list vision right now? And that certainly ties in with the type of board that you have.
Well, to me, the 3 things, when they say real estate, location, in our case, is about decentralization. That's what Mimik is about decentralized cloud. Mm-hmm. And also decentralization of business model. There are right now, I mean, if you think about what mobile internet did, is kind of transfer the physical middleman into new digital middleman. What we see about the next one in hyper-connected world and decentralization is about eliminating the digital middleman and creating a more direct business trades between the consumer and producer, right? So it's about decentralization of the digital economy. And also, we're quite an advocate for data rights because we believe that data need to have need to be classified as a monetary asset, right? So the data need to have a value. Today, our data gets sucked into the third-party enterprise and gets sold and resold and also bring a lot of value to those companies because based on our data, they decide how to maneuver the company. And at the end of it, we see nothing except for being exploited or receiving junk advertisement and all that. We believe that needs to change. The data need to have classified as a financial asset. I need to be able to trade with that data and directly with the person that I want to do business with.
Well, just that in terms of challenges, I mean, the fact that data is being sold to third parties, so did that represent one of the biggest challenges you faced, in terms of Mimik?
I'm not sure what you mean in terms of whether that was a challenge in terms of Mimik.
Well, what I'm thinking is when you have a vision and then you have a reality of what's going on out there in terms of third-party data being really stolen and people profiting by, whether that constituted a challenge to you.
It concerns me to my bones, and as a citizen, I would say, and it also concerns me that I don't see. I mean, I love that there are GDPR is coming down. I think Europe is doing a great job around GDPR and data privacy. But I think governments need to step in more. I think governments need to come out and say, hey, data is something that is owned by the data producer. Whether I'm an Uber driver or a consumer using an application, it's my data, and I have a choice of presenting it to you or not. I think it's the time of creating the new solutions as we are going toward this hyper-connected world with that mindset in mind, right? And I think every solution that gets launched to market is almost like need to take that into consideration. The question is, do we need a government role that almost says, no, Mr. Company, you can't just steal data, therefore your application must have X, Y, Z before it gets published, or we should leave it to an open kind of a business owner decision on whether they want to do that or not. mimic, one of the aspects of mimic enabler is about protecting user data and enabling data privacy in a proper way, because the data can process on device. And then from there, the knowledge can be given to the different parties that are responsible for that piece of data, right? Let's say that if it's a CCTV camera surveillance, you don't have to stream everybody to a central place and somebody sitting and watching me. Based on the event, that CCTV camera should be able to inform a law enforcement or inform an emergency response without going to a central place.
Before we head in a bit of a different direction, I had a final question about mimic, or before we get into some more personal queries of your interesting life, quite frankly. But where do you see mimic being in the next 5 years?
Oh, well, mimic is going to be the enabler of hyper-connected world. So imagine as you have physical devices that are connected and they have an operating system and they're running a client agent, mimic is part of that client agent in every device, right? So it's the enabler of a hyper-connected world. And we like to stand for a sustainable digital economy and a sustainable set of solutions that been edgified to protect our digital footprint, to reduce the digital waste, to create sustainable digital economy. And that's where I see mimic going to.
Fay, I mean, this is your third company that you've launched, and we do always ask this one question: whether founders are wired differently. How would you answer that?
Well, I guess it depends, because again, if I go back to the pre-app economy, I would say founders are wired differently, right? Because it's about, there is a big problem and I want to solve it, right? Bill Gates, I want to give one laptop to every kid and one computer to every kid, right? Yeah. Google was about search, creating an index of content on the web. Somewhere in the middle of these things, as Silicon Valley became the Silicon Valley and we got social media type application, it turned into an app economy. And in my opinion, the founders almost led by what VCs invest in.
Yes.
The first group were about, here is a problem, I need money to solve it. The second group was about, VCs invest in X, therefore let's create that. So between the two, to me, the founders of that time were definitely wired differently. The founders, and I'm not going to generalize, again, This is not about generalization, but many groups of founders in here, they were just about, hey, there's a business opportunity and investors invest in this sector, let's create it. It's a little bit of a different mindset. If you look at mimic, we're more like the pre-app economy era, where we saw a foundational problem and we went after it to solve it.
Very good. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Well, I would say, don't worry, you figure it out. You're going to go through so many variety of challenges in your life that you can't even imagine as your 20 years old person. But don't worry, you're going to figure it out. I mean, I went through, I grew up with the revolution of Iran, post-revolution of Iran, within a very difficult time that democracy ended overnight. And got into, as a teenager, I got into so many troubles, and then I had to escape Iran and then end up being in different countries as a refugee, and, continue my immigration life, that when I look back, I would have never imagined those times. But although I was 20 when I was 17 when I escaped, so it's hard to say I wouldn't say that to my 20 years old.
Yeah.
But you figure it out, it's life is going to throw you all kind of curveballs that you can't predict, but you're going to figure it out.
Well, and what was the best piece of advice that you ever received?
I always give, it's very hard to give one or two, is the variety, the collection of advice, experiences that we've gone through. But there's one example I always go back to, and that was Miss Linda McDonald at Concordia Administration Office of Engineering School when I went for my interview. And at the end of the interview, I didn't have all the paperwork that she wanted because of my situation. And at the end, she said that I'll give you the opportunity to join Concordia University for your education, but what you do with it is up to you. Now, incredible. And that became the most incredible advice I've ever received, and I apply that in my life to others as well. When I see a potential, I say, okay, there is an opportunity. This person has potential. Let's see whether they can do it or not. What they do to it with it, it's up to them. Similarly, when you get your degree, but what you do with it is up to you, right? So absolutely, that's one of the best piece of advice I've got.
And you've taken and ran with that, so that's admirable. Next part of the interview is we call them rapid fire questions. They're not really tech related. They're a mishmash, but hopefully you'll enjoy this next few minutes. If you weren't doing what you do for work now, what would you be doing instead?
I think I would be an artist. A painter, a musician. I love art, and I think that's one thing that as a society we're losing. So, yeah.
And what book are you currently reading, and what book would you recommend to our audience?
Well, The Three-Body Object is the one that I'm reading, and it's a very interesting book that I would recommend because it's almost it's almost addressing the challenges that if we're facing a worldwide challenge, how do we come together to solve it, right? So that's one of my books these days.
Morning or night person?
Oh, I'm an all-time person. What my work requires, I'm there, and then recently I've been cases that I am up from 4 a.m. and doing calls with the rest of the world, and then with Pacific time zone, and then goes to 8, 9 p.m. So absolutely, that's whatever requires.
And if you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would it be and why?
I think curiosity, and mainly because, as I said, I always consider myself as a person that is driven by curiosity and motivated by problem solving. So that's why perhaps curiosity is the one.
And there might not be anything keeping you up at night, but if there is, what is it?
The future of our world as a society. It's I feel like we're fast tracking toward the hyper-connected world, the digital, everything becoming digital. And I think it concerns me that we're seeing monopoly in the tech side, and I think one thing COVID-19 proved that governments are quite dysfunctional. The contact tracing, the capability that operating system vendor decided that they're going to add it to operating system, and governments completely overlooked it and said, sure, go ahead. That combines with data exploitation. I feel like if we're going that direction, we're definitely going to end in Blade Runner 2 ending.
Yes.
And that genuinely concerns me that genuinely concerns me. And I feel like as our lives are going to be intertwined with digital, there is no government organization around it. There's nobody that says, hey, you can't do this. There's nobody says, hey, you give this application to this person and you're not following a standard XYZ. And there should be a balance, you know. Monopoly is dangerous in tech. That's what really, these are the things that really keep me up at night.
And but my final question is: when you meet with unexpected challenges and which you have just described, how do you typically handle them?
It's something that I say: zoom in, zoom out. You know, you kind of see the big problem, and now you come back and say, okay, what is the piece I can address today? And then you find a path to go from what you can address today to what you want to get to. And at every stage, you assess, you pivot, and you adjust the course of your movement with a good team around me. You know, it's almost like dissect the big problem to small pieces and try to address the one that you first know. Establish a framework, but you have to be able. Nothing can be rigid. Right? Certain things can be rigid. No politics, no zero tolerance for politics in an organization, the transparent culture, a focused culture, a friendly culture. Those are rigid. Respecting each other, those are rigid. But then the rest is about constantly breaking things to small pieces, addressing the small pieces, and making sure that you're still on the right direction to that final goal that you want to achieve, to get to.
Thank you. And that's a great way to end this interview. I appreciate you taking the time, Fay. And in terms of an ending, where can our listeners and our readers find you online?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, Fay Arjomandi. I'm on Twitter, Fay Arjomandi. And on their Mimik YouTube channel and Mimik social media, I'm there as well. And I've been doing there are a lot of publications and things like that around the overall industry, data privacy, and others that getting published on a weekly basis. And it's on our website, mimik.com.
Fay, thank you very much. I've enjoyed this very much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.